he said he was fine, that he was not injured. And, in fact, when we did find his vehicle, there was no damage to it. It was simply muddy.
At 1:54 in the morning, a 19-year-old calls his parents for help. He says his car is stuck. He says he knows exactly where he is. Less than an hour later, he says 2 words and disappears forever. The phone rings inside the Swanson home. Brian and Annette wake instantly. It's their son, Brandon, calm. Too calm for a call at this hour. He says his car is stuck in a ditch. Nothing serious. He's fine. He knows where he is. He gives them a location, a stretch of gravel somewhere north of Highway 68, and hangs up so they can come get him. Brian and Annette Swanson are in the truck within minutes. They know these roads. They've driven them 1,000 times. But when they reach the spot their son described, there is nothing. No car, no headlights, no Brandon. Brian steps out into the cold and starts flashing his high beams into the dark, over and over, a silent signal into nothing. Somewhere out there, Brandon is doing the same, flashing his own lights, watching for a response that never comes. 2 sets of headlights, cutting into the same night, and neither one finds the other. The frustration builds fast. Words are exchanged. Brandon hangs up on his mother. She calls back to make it right, and he tells them something new. He's going to walk toward Lind, toward a friend's house, and wait there. Simple enough. Except Brandon is not near Lind. He has never been near Lind tonight. He is 19, disoriented, alone on a gravel road in the dark, and he does not know it yet. Brian drives his wife home to Marshall so she can rest, then turns the truck back around into the night to find his son on foot. At 2:23 a.m., he calls Brandon again. This call will be the last one that ever connects. Brandon is walking. He describes what he sees. A fence line running beside him, and in the distance, lights. A town, he thinks. Almost there. Brian stays on the line, driving, listening, trying to close the gap between his headlights and his son's voice. At 3:10 a.m., Brandon says 2 words. "Oh shit." And then, the line goes dead. Brian calls back. Nothing. He calls again. Nothing. Somewhere out in the dark, a phone is ringing into empty air, and no one is left to answer it. By the time the sun comes up over Lyon County, Brandon Swanson has been unreachable for hours. The search that begins that morning will not end for over a decade. He was born March 17th, 1989, in Marshall, raised in a tight-knit community, well-liked, close with his family. The kind of person friends describe as stable and easygoing. Nothing like someone who runs from his own life. On the night of May 13th, 2008, he'd been in Lind, a small town roughly 30 miles southwest of Marshall, spending the evening with friends. Around midnight, he said his goodbyes and started the drive home. It should have taken him well under an hour. Then came the ditch, the phone call, the 2 sets of headlights that never met, and somewhere in the confusion, the darkness, and the argument on the phone. Brandon made a decision that would cost him everything. He turned off the road he knew, and he never explained why. His friends and family search through the early hours and find nothing. At 6:30 a.m., a desperate Annette Swanson calls the Lyon County Sheriff's Department. At first, she is told what every parent of a missing adult child dreads hearing. He's 19. He's legally an adult. This happens. Kids stay out all night. It takes hours before anyone in uniform understands. This is not that. By that afternoon, investigators trace Brandon's phone signal to a tower northwest of Marshall. There, on the edge of a field near the Lyon and Lincoln County line, they find his Chevy Lumina. It sits on what Lyon County Sheriff Jeff Visecki will later describe as a sharp incline. Nothing major, he says, but enough that the car got hung up, its wheels lifted just high enough off the ground to lose all traction. The location makes no sense. Brandon told his parents he was near Lind. He is nowhere close. The car sits roughly 25 miles from where he believed he was standing, out near the small towns of Taunton and Porter, 20 miles northwest of Marshall, in the opposite direction of everything he thought he knew. Inside the car, investigators find nothing. No alcohol, no drugs, no blood, no sign of a struggle, no trace evidence. Nothing to suggest violence took him from behind the wheel. The ground around the vehicle holds no answers either. No footprints leading away. Nothing to say which direction a 19-year-old boy walked into the dark. Search dogs are brought in, and they pull their handlers toward the banks of the Yellow Medicine River, swollen and fast that spring, knee-deep in places, 15 feet deep in others. The theory takes hold almost immediately. Brandon, disoriented, exhausted, walking blind through unfamiliar terrain, went into the water and never came out. For weeks, then months, searchers comb the riverbanks. Volunteers, professional search teams, land crews and air crews. Nothing surfaces. Not in May, not in June, not in the years that follow. A major search effort in August 2010 turns up nothing new. Earlier that year, in March, bloodhounds pull investigators toward a different site. Mud Creek, close to where the car was found. Cadaver dogs later signal a scent there strong enough to keep the search alive. Search manager Jeff Haas, who documents the effort for years on a blog dedicated entirely to finding Brandon, writes of searchers walking the fields in 15 and 20-foot sections, of rain turning the ground to mud, of hope measured out in inches of slow, grinding progress. And still, nothing. Here is what makes Brandon Swanson's disappearance different from so many others. The phone. His cell did not go silent that night. For 2 more days, callers reached his voicemail after several rings, meaning the phone stayed powered on, stayed charged, stayed somewhere in the world, ringing for a boy who never picked it up again. It appears to have shut off around May 16th. That single detail unravels the simplest explanation. If Brandon drowned in the current that night, how did his phone survive 2 more days of ringing? A phone doesn't typically stay charged and reachable while its owner is already gone. Some have floated the idea that he could have dropped the phone before ever reaching the water, or hung up accidentally in the act of falling. But that is speculation standing in for an answer no one actually has. The theories multiply, and none of them fit cleanly. A staged disappearance would require planning and motive, neither of which existed, and neither of which explains a boy who spent his last conscious hour trying desperately to get his father to come find him. A mental break is possible, but it sits uneasily against everything the people who loved him say about who he was. Grounded, high-functioning, not a person who vanishes without reason. Foul play remains the darkest possibility. A rural road, an empty hour past 3 in the morning, a boy alone and disoriented. But no suspect has ever surfaced, no witness, no piece of evidence placing another person anywhere near him that night. What's left is the theory investigators keep circling back to, the one that fits the most facts even as it explains the fewest. That Brandon turned around in the dark, exhausted and frustrated, mistaking one set of distant lights for the town he thought he was near, wandered toward the Yellow Medicine River, and went into water he never saw coming. The current ran high and fast that spring, more than capable of carrying someone for miles, far past anywhere searchers thought to look. More than a decade of searching has never closed the gap between theory and certainty. Cadaver dogs still signal along Mud Creek. Volunteers still walk fields in 15-foot sections after every hard rain. Brian and Annette Swanson still live inside a phone call that ends on 2 words and then nothing. No goodbye, no explanation. Just the sound of their son's voice cutting off mid-thought somewhere out in the dark, and never coming back. Somewhere along a gravel road north of Highway 68, 2 sets of headlights once searched for each other and never touched. Whatever happened in the minutes after, the fall, the water, the cold, the silence, happened just out of reach of everyone who loved him, and it has stayed that way ever since. If the ground near Mud Creek is still holding on to him, it hasn't given him up yet, and until it does, the case of Brandon Swanson remains exactly where it started that night in May 2008, unanswered, unresolved, and waiting. If this one has stayed with you the way it stayed with the people still out searching those fields after every rain, stay close for the next case. Some mysteries take years to surface. We'll be here when they do.